Let's celebrate seafood. Let me help you fall in love again. This is the Happy Diabetic Kitchen, the podcast about people who love to eat and cook healthy. This is your guide to the world of healthy cooking and conversation about happy diabetic living and lifestyles, where we turn ordinary ingredients into something extraordinary. Welcome to the kitchen and let's get cooking. Hello everyone, I am Chef Robert Lewis, the Happy Diabetic, and this is the internet's most delicious cooking podcast. Hey, I'm here in the kitchen getting ready to explore a healthy diabetic lifestyle, and if you're new to the show, welcome, glad you're here. I'm happy you're hanging out in our kitchen. Hey Jason, what's up?
Hey, not too much. How's it going?
It's going great. How about you?
Doing good over here.
I have to tell you, we had a lot of fun putting this episode together because we cooked some incredible seafood dishes. And the one we landed on was one that sort of inspired us from a recent trip to Monterey, California. While I was there, I discovered a dish called Cioppino. It's a full flavor, delicious, and rich fish stew. So back in the Midwest, where I live, Iowa, we thought, well, let's try to put this version together where seafood might be a challenge to find. But hey, we did it. So Cioppino is a dish created by fishermen in San Francisco. It's the classic Italian-American fish stew created primarily by Italian immigrants who settled in the North Neighborhood Beach of San Francisco around the late 1800s. So we met up with my friend Dave Meltzer, a seafood expert from Midwest Seafoods. He helped us put together a great combination of fresh and frozen seafoods, and this version is savory, rich, full flavor, and wow, is it delicious. So, of course, the recipe of the podcast today is Cioppino. We also have a cool Because of My Diabetes story and much, much more. Okay, well, let's get cooking. We're going to start off the podcast with a great Because of My Diabetes story. So simply finish this statement, because of my diabetes, blank. You know, something positive. Lemonade out of lemons. Maybe you met someone amazing who might have helped you. I really want to hear your story. Head over to happydiabetic.com, hit the send voicemail link on any of the pages, and record your story. So today's Because of My Diabetes story is from Susan. Now, I met Susan in Novi, Michigan last weekend. I met her at the tcoyd.org event, and here's what she had to say. When I was diagnosed in 2007, I really thought I was a loser, a failure. My family came around me to support me and help me overcome what I thought was a failure. My doc showed me that diabetes was part of my family tree, and that with some simple changes in my diet and learning to cook in a different way and adding some exercise and checking my blood sugars, I started to make a difference in some very small ways, and the changes just started to happen. It gave me hope for a healthier lifestyle. Wow, that's just a great story. Thank you, Susan, for sharing. It was great meeting you, and I just appreciate your honesty and your love. The truth is, lots of diabetics are confused about seafood. So in the kitchen today, I have a very special guest, Dave Meltzer from Midwest Seafoods. Now, Jason and I had an opportunity to meet him and go to his amazing seafood shop. Jason, what did you think about that?
I thought it was awesome. You know, it's amazing when you find something like that you didn't even know existed. You know, a fish market in downtown Davenport, Iowa. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think the challenge of making this Cioppino dish is that in Monterey we had a lot of amazing fresh seafood, just really caught right off the coast of California. So my thought was, well, how can I replicate that here in the Midwest where most of it is frozen?
Right.
And we saw lots of fresh and we saw lots of frozen in the seafood market also. And I think Dave tried to help us to look at using a little bit of everything in this amazing Cioppino dish. So let's head over to Midwest Seafood Market and meet Dave. Diabetic, and today we have an amazing voyage and an interview with a quite interesting gentleman. His name is Dave, and I'm going to let Dave introduce himself in just a second, but we're here at Midwest Seafood Market, and we're talking about fresh seafood in the middle of the Midwest. So I think the Pacific Ocean is about 1,900 miles away from Iowa, and the Atlantic Ocean is about the same, so we're here in the middle of the country talking about fresh fish, frozen fish, and we're going to finish up by making an amazing dish called Cioppino, which we'll get into in just a few minutes. So, hey, Dave, welcome to the Happy Diabetic Kitchen.
Thank you, sir.
So, Dave, tell all the Happy Diabetics listening today who you are, what you do, and a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Dave Meltzer, and I've been around Great Midwest Seafood Company for a long time. My parents started it in 1983 when I was in about second grade at the time. And he was joined soon thereafter by Dave Surrier, who is my partner today. So it's the two of us kind of running the show, if you will. We bring in seafood from all over the world. And the majority of what we do here is commercial distribution, but we have a full retail front out there for people to come in and get their fish.
Wow, awesome. So I'm just curious, what's the furthest the fish might come from?
Opposite the globe, New Zealand, Australia. We had Australian swordfish in here last week, which was outstanding.
That's amazing.
Anywhere you can think of.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. So, do you use the term fishmonger? Do you know that term?
Oh, I've heard of it. We don't use it too much, but...
So, how do you technically classify yourself?
As a seafood distributor.
Okay, so seafood distributor, retail also, mostly to restaurants though, right?
Correctly.
Okay, yep. Awesome. So, what do you think, Dave, is the biggest mistake people make when they buy fish or shellfish?
One of the biggest there's a couple out there. Some people think it has to be fresh. In some instances, that's almost impossible, and the quality of a good frozen product is going to be as good as fresh. Not 100% off the boat, but good frozen quality is outstanding and doesn't take a backseat to anything.
Okay, so that's a really good point, because some people think frozen fish or shellfish gets a bad rap.
Correct.
But that's really not true.
It's not true at all, no.
Yeah.
The main difference between a frozen piece of fish and a fresh piece of fish is the moisture content.
Okay.
And that you can taste by a texture. If you blindfolded me with a fresh piece of salmon and a frozen piece of salmon, I could tell you which is which. But we bring in a variety of fresh and frozen.
Yeah.
So we can offer everything out there.
Right. Right. And fresh fish and frozen fish basically are coming from the exact same place, right?
Correct.
And so they're just flash frozen right on the premises.
At the peak of its freshness.
Right. Mm-hmm. So if you're in the Midwest like me, frozen fish is very common.
Yes.
So don't get so excited, right?
But so is fresh fish.
And fresh fish. Yeah, okay. That's a great point, and that's why we're here today, to talk about that. So another question I get is, people sometimes don't know how much fish to serve to somebody. Is there a general rule for that?
I think your answer that you would know in your head would be better than mine. But, a typical serving at a restaurant, and what we tell our retail customers, is 6 to 8 ounces of protein as your main dinner portion.
Okay.
But your answer is probably going to be better than mine.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a good rule of thumb. People are always confused about that. So when buying fish, Dave, what really should I look for? What should the average consumer look for when buying fish?
When you're looking at a fresh piece of fish, you want to see some moisture content. You want to see some, if you will, a slime coat. You don't want it to be dry and tacky. When you push your finger into a fresh piece of fish, it should rebound. The smell should be clean. It should not have anything offensive. Of course, it's going to smell like fish, which is very natural, obviously. But it should not have, if there's any tad bit of ammonia, it's garbage. It's past its prime. Just look for that good shine, good color.
Is this a true statement? If you're buying a head-on fish, the eyes should be clear?
Correct.
So if they're cloudy, that might indicate
little age on the
fish. Okay.
Yep.
But maybe not necessarily so bad.
Correct. But yeah, it's a good indicator.
Okay. So what about this talk about mercury and toxins in fish?
Mercury is more prevalent in any fish that is a predator. So when you think of which fishes are predators, it's going to be your bigger fish, your swordfish, your sharks. They're constantly eating little fish after little fish, which is an accumulation of mercury that the body doesn't
that's interesting.
Get rid of over the course of time.
Yeah.
For example, the fresh fish that we have around here, that Midwest people catch out of the river. You got bass, you got walleye, catfish, carp. Out of those 4 types of fish, your walleye has the most mercury content because they're eating minnows and all their life.
Okay.
So
I didn't know that. Listen to that, you guys. We're learning something new today.
The only time I'll tell people not to eat a piece of fish that's high in mercury would be someone that's pregnant. If we have a pregnant customer that comes into the store, I'll say, woe back on the swordfish, shark.
Dave, here's a question about oysters. You guys sell oysters?
Sure do.
Okay. So there's a myth, maybe it's a myth, maybe it's not. Never eat an oyster in a month that has the letter R in the name. Ever heard of that?
I have. To tell you the truth, I don't know where that came from, but our nobody wants to eat an oyster in the summertime.
Yeah.
You ever go to a backyard barbecue and have oyster stew?
No.
No. People are just thinking different things that time of year. I can get oysters year-round, and we do.
Okay.
The demand is just not as low. Sometimes we notice that the meat meat doesn't get as big from the oyster that's harvested in the summertime, but they are available year-round. I sell them year-round.
Yeah.
But not many people want them.
Yeah. Do you have a preference where your oysters come from?
We get all of our shellfish off the East Coast via Boston.
Okay.
Twice a week we have a truck that comes out of Boston. And
okay.
Boston's a major import city, and they major hub for seafood.
Right.
In that they collect product off the whole East Coast up into Canada, and so we have we can pick from 10, 12 different types of oysters usually.
Right. Oh wow. Okay. Okay. So this is a personal question now for you, Dave. Favorite fish to cook, or to eat, or both?
That's if I had one for the rest of my life, I'd probably say a good piece of salmon.
Okay.
But I like making comfort food like Cioppino.
Okay.
And gumbos and thing like that.
Yeah.
Where you throw in a bunch of different things.
Right.
I don't like to limit some dishes to one type of fish.
Sure. Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Dave. It's great chatting with you. Before we actually go into the market and start selecting some fish for our Cioppino, I have a couple quick questions for you. So we're going to play what's called the Rapid Fire 411. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you simply choose your preference. Okay, and we didn't talk about this beforehand.
No problem.
So, for example, I might ask you a question, butter or olive oil, and you would choose what your favorite is.
Right.
Or riding a bike or hiking, right?
Okay.
Or your favorite food. Okay, so you ready to play?
I am.
All right, so now it's the 411 with Dave. Butter or olive oil?
Butter.
Sweet pickles or dill?
Sweet.
Favorite pizza topping?
Pepperoni.
All right, awesome. Favorite vegetable?
Asparagus.
Bacon or peanut butter?
Bacon.
Roller coaster or merry-go-round?
Roller coaster.
So you're kind of a daredevil kind of a guy?
Getting older though.
I hear you. Baked or fried?
Fried is good, but I have to go with baked.
Okay. Waffles or pancakes?
Waffles.
Okay. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Morning.
Okay. Puppies or kittens?
Puppies, hands down.
Cheesecake or ice cream?
Ice cream.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
And lastly, a buffet or a sit-down dinner?
Sit down.
Okay. All right, so Dave, one last question. If you could sit down for dinner with anyone past or present, who might that be?
Wow. You got me on that one.
You got anybody? Somebody famous, past or present, could be a family member, could be someone that you would just want to make some delicious salmon for.
Oh, wow. Theodore Roosevelt.
Roosevelt. Any particular reason?
He was, he was responsible for doing a lot of our national parks.
Wow.
And so he was kind of an early pioneer in conservation.
Okay. That's a great. That's a great answer. I like that. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Dave. Shall we go out to the market and see what's happening?
You betcha.
All righty. Okay, so we're actually now in the market with Dave, and we're going to pick out some seafood for the Cioppino, and Dave's going to walk us through what we've got here. So, clams. Should we start there, Dave?
Sure will. We have two different types of clams out here today. They're both identical. The main difference being the size. I have top necks, and then I have the little necks. Top necks are bigger. Usually the bigger the clam, the chewier, the tougher it is. And so for the Cioppino dish, we're going to want to do a little neck. You're going to get the flavor out of the juice when it cooks. You're going to have a much tender piece of clam.
Okay, little necks it is. So we're going to get some of those. And then how about mussels?
Mussels. These are a rope-cultured, farm-raised mussel off the East Coast. And when choosing shellfish, you always look at your product. You know, when you're purchasing, the person selling you your shellfish should get rid of any piece that is open and doesn't shut, and also do that at home. You know, before you cook, throw away the ones that are open. It's a constant thing to monitor fresh shellfish, Yeah, shellfish is one of the last things thrown into the Cioppino dish, you know, because it's only going to take a few minutes. They'll pop open wide when they're done, and you get a lot of flavor from the juice.
Yeah. And Dave, if they don't pop open, what does that tell you after you've cooked them?
I've always heard to throw them away, and that's what I would do, because usually it's like you blink your eyes and you look back in your pot and everything's open.
Right.
You know.
Right. Sounds good. All right. Awesome. So we've got the little necks, right?
Right.
Okay, we've got mussels.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so let's talk about calamari. Now, I know when I was out in Monterey last week, there was lots of fresh calamari, tentacles, and squids, but that is hard to find fresh, and typically you have to buy it frozen in a larger quantity, right?
Yeah, you know, I really don't even see fresh calamari offered. Boy, I'd have to search high and low to find that.
Yeah, okay.
But we sell different cuts of the calamari. We have tenderized calamari steaks. We also carry blocks of tubes and tentacles, cut rings, if you will, also, and different sizes of the tubes and tentacles.
So I think for this dish, and simply to make it easy, let's do a steak.
They're tenderized. It's going to be a nice chewy piece of meat in there.
Okay, awesome. All right, so now how about scallops?
Scallops, I'd like to show you the product that we have out in the case over here. We get in fresh scallops off the East Coast, and these are what's called a fresh dry scallop, meaning no water, no chemicals added. Hands down, the best taste, the best texture. There's a lot of processing that's done on a lot of frozen scallops, water added and chemicals that leach out when you're cooking, so you're losing moisture when you cook, and they never will carry the same flavor. And so these are fresh, never been frozen scallops. We've got perfect jumbo scallops there, and then we also sell the same product that are broken pieces. And for the application of your Cioppino for $10 less a pound,
that's the one.
The pieces are a shoe-in.
Yeah, I know when I sear scallops, the dry, call them dry boat?
Dry scallops.
Yeah, dry scallops. That's the way to go.
Oh, for
They
sure.
don't leach out any liquid. They turn nice and golden brown. But I've never seen the pieces offered, so I think that's definitely the way we're going to go.
Oh, it's the same exact product, never been frozen, and they're outstanding.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so shrimp in the shell. Now, I do know that you buy shrimp by the count, right? So there's really no such thing as jumbo shrimp typically, right?
Correct. It's kind of a generic term,
Right.
and when people ask for prawns, let's define this.
Yeah.
When we talk about shrimp around here, it's always in a number, because that's how it's sold. It's sold by pieces per the pound.
Right. So if you see like a U6 or U12, that's simply 12 shrimp per pound, right?
Correct. Yep. And your recipe calls for shrimp in the shells. I wouldn't. I would get rid of the shells, unless you're going to incorporate it into making your stock beforehand.
Right.
And for a Cioppino or any dish like that, I always use a small shrimp, because you're eating a soup. You don't want a shrimp that you can't even fit on your spoon with anything else, and you don't want to use a knife to cut your food down while you're eating a soup.
Yeah. So maybe, and what size are those?
Those are a 31 to 40 count that we have out there.
Okay, so about 30 to 40 shrimp per pound. So that might be the way to go.
That'd be a great one, I think. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
They're going to shrink slightly upon cooking, but not too much.
Yeah. So then we need a fish.
Yes.
What do you recommend?
For a Cioppino, you could do a million different things. Should I tell you what I wouldn't do?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. That's half the fun.
Right on. The tilapia I would not do. It's too delicate. It's gonna get broken up and lost in there.
Okay.
Catfish probably too strong of a flavor for a Cioppino. I would use a catfish in a gumbo, something that wants a little more flavor. Tuna definitely no way for a Cioppino. That's more of a steak, medium rare grilling.
Right.
And the haddock is going to be pretty delicate but doable. That's a nice fresh piece of haddock off the East Coast. Arctic char that we have fresh out here today, I would say no for a Cioppino. It has too much flavor, and it's so good by itself that I wouldn't want to try to put it in a Cioppino and blend it with all those other confusing flavors.
Right. Good point.
Another piece of fish that we have is Pangasius. It's farm raised, mostly out of Vietnam. It's a very versatile piece of fish. It would suffice. It's an economical way to make a good stew.
Okay.
And it'll hold together pretty decent. Next in line here, we got some snapper. That's a fresh lane snapper. Comes to us through Miami. All the southern fish. Miami's a main import city, and we get a truck out of Miami once a week. That's a very nice fresh piece of snapper. It'll hold together. It's firm in texture.
Okay.
Great one for your Cioppino if you want. Next one over here is cod. These are an Atlantic cod loin, previously frozen. Cod holds together real well in any dish like that. I would chunk it down into good bite-sized chunks before you put it in there.
True or false, is a snapper a kind of a cod, or are they not related?
I would say they're not related, but that's a total guess.
The cod looks really great to me, and again, it's frozen. So if you're in an area where you don't have a lot of abundance of fresh fish, that would probably make a really great addition.
That'd be great for anything. We had fresh cod in here last week.
Yeah.
And for the price difference, it was about $8 more a pound on the retail end. And would I spend $18 a pound to put a fish into a bouillabaisse or a Cioppino?
Probably not.
No.
Right.
I'd rather spend $8.95 for a nice previously frozen product that's going to be great for your dish.
Makes sense. All right. Well, thanks, Dave. This has been amazing. So, next stop, we're going to bag up some shellfish and some seafood, and we'll head back in the diabetic kitchen, and let's make this dish. Dave, thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Right on. Right.
You are listening to the Happy Diabetic Kitchen podcast. I am your host, Chef Robert Lewis, the Happy Diabetic. Be sure to follow me on all my social links. You'll find them all at happydiabetic.com. Just look for all my links at the top right-hand side of the page. And if you have a question for me, just go to my website and hit the Contact tab. You ask questions, and I'll answer them. And hey, who knows? They might even become part of the show, and if I select your question, I will send you a free Happy Diabetic Cookbook of Love. Okay, so let's get on to the recipe of the podcast, Cioppino. This is an amazing recipe, and it's got quite a few steps with lots of pictures. So I've included them all at the blog area of my website, happydiabetic.com. Head over there and enjoy this delicious, flavorful, rich, tomatoey fish stew we call Cioppino. If you are loving what you hear in the kitchen, please leave a comment or feedback at either Stitcher, Google Play, or iTunes, or wherever you're listening at this podcast. Your thoughts and comments are appreciated, and we thank you very much. Our podcast is produced and engineered by Jason Lewis. Our theme music by the Happy Diabetic Kitchen Band, and yours truly, Chef Robert, on the guitar. And of course, our kitchen mascots, Scout and Tucker. So thanks for tuning in, and let me leave you with this thought. The joy of cooking and eating is turning ordinary ingredients into something extraordinary. So long for now, and remember, no one loves you more than me.